Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Tuesday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy. Up first, there are no watches, warnings, or advisories out around the state here for the next, anywhere around the state, all the way up to the Arctic coast or out west over the Bering Sea. Likely to continue that way for the next 2 or 3 days anyway. And otherwise, we've got a frontal system here pushing eastward into the Gulf of Alaska, spreading moisture and clouds and warmer temperatures northward into southern Alaska, especially west of the Alaska Range, but even over the Bristol Bay area. Rain and snow falling at Kodiak Island, rain and snow along the North Gulf Coast, heaviest amounts at Seward with about a little over 1/3 of an inch in the last 12 hours, as well as at, Portage, also picking up some rain and snow there, and that extending into Turnagain Arm, little areas of light rain over the Kenai Peninsula. Otherwise, not much moisture any farther north than that. We've got moisture moving into the Panhandle as a new low develops farther to the south, and then another system out there you can see south of the central Aleutian, just grazing the Atka Island area with some clouds and snowfall with colder temperatures once again back down over the Bering Sea at the over the Pribilof Islands, with that low center now to the east and pulling some colder air down from the north and northeast, and that wrapping around back into the Seward Peninsula. Otherwise, looping this again, fair amount of clearing up over the interior, dry conditions, release clouds thinner, and seeing some sunshine, allowing temperatures warm up into the 40s, southerly winds up to about 30 miles an hour along the Copper River, kick temperature up into the lower 40s at Gulkana, and that extending up across the Alaska Range into Northway, upper 30s, Tok, and other locations seeing temperatures in the lower 40s. Fairbanks up into the upper 30s at mid-afternoon, which is about 20 degrees warmer from 2 days ago, and they had that high of 17. They're up to 37 today. So quite a bit of recovery. Actually, the cold snap is over now, at least for the central and southern part of the state, at least for the time being. And on the chart today, some scattered showers over the Panhandle. Next system to the south there are starting to push moisture northward. Rainfall mostly over the Queen Charlotte, still off to the southwest. And then that front right across Kodiak Island, bringing anywhere from 1 to 2/10 of an inch water equivalent precipitation, some of which fell in the form of snow, especially overnight. And some moisture pushing up into the southern Kenai Peninsula, western Prince William Sound, and the North Gulf Coast, with small craft advisory level winds in the Gulf of Alaska. Ahead of that front, and low pressure back over western Bristol Bay, keeping rain and snow showers over the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, with areas of rain or snow over the Bristol Bay locations. Otherwise, just scattered showers out over the western Aleutians. And again, that low south of Atka Island. See, tonight moves off to the east-northeast and begins to take a little more turn to the north. The low off the southeast coast pushes northward off the coast, and that'll bring gale force winds as it comes up, with a good shot of rain into the southern Panhandle and eventually into the central areas, with rain and snow to the north, reaching possibly Skagway. And the trough along the North Gulf Coast keeps it unsettled, damp, and cloudy there, with basically dry conditions and variably cloudy skies over the interior, thinning out as you get over to the northwest part of the state, western Brooks Range and North Slope. High pressure up over the North Slope will keep winds light and variable there for the Arctic coast, and really no strong winds expected elsewhere around the state, the exception being with that storm moving northward off the Panhandle, and some scattered snow showers along the southwest coast from St. Lawrence Island across Cape Newnham into Togiak Bay, eastward to Dillingham, maybe King Salmon, Igigik. but nothing significant at all. Rain and snow showers for the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians. Some of that moisture of the system to the south nudges northward just enough to increase the precipitation chances there. And then a couple surges of moisture coming southward there bring snow and rain to the Aleutians. And then tomorrow, looks like should be cold enough. Freezing levels back down to near sea level for snow, or at least wet snow, across much of the Aleutian chain. Mostly in the form of showers, so nothing significant as far as any accumulations expected, and should end over the Pribilofs, and just dry conditions St. Lawrence Island through the Bering Strait coast with partly cloudy skies, chance of snow showers along the Brooks Range, and cloudy with a chance of rain or snow showers across just about all of southern Alaska from the Copper River Basin southwestward to the southern Yukon Delta into Bristol Bay. Kodiak Island will begin to see an increase in the precipitation late in the day and Wednesday evening as that next system approaches. Otherwise, the other system moves northward into Canada and weakens, so conditions showery tomorrow, breezy with some gale warnings along the south coast early on, diminishing in the afternoon, and west-southwest winds anywhere from 15 to 30 miles an hour, especially over the northern panhandle in the afternoon hours. And then looking ahead to Thursday, the next system moves up to the southern Kenai Peninsula. That'll keep it cloudy across, again, all of southern Alaska with chance of precipitation. Rain in the afternoon, possible snow overnight hours and early morning for the Kenai Peninsula and North Gulf Coast. Not getting too far past the coast range there, so the Copper River Basin will be dry on up into the Tanana Valley, westward toward the Seward Peninsula. Maybe some scattered light snow showers or flurries for the Bering Strait down to St. Lawrence Island, as well as the eastern Brooks Range up to the eastern Arctic coastal areas. And then rain will increase across the panhandle as that front approaches, but the winds won't be too significant, not much of a gradient associated with that front at all. Just keep it occasional light rain with cloudy skies there. And snow showers continue for the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula with that low right over Kuskokwim Bay, and that'll be the case into Bristol Bay as well. Look for occasional snow showers or rain and snow showers, especially in the afternoon, more of a rain condition into the Kuskokwim Delta, maybe southern Kuskokwim Valley, and showers and around Atka with a break over the western Aleutians. Ahead of that next system, you can see approaching the far western Aleutians there, just coming onto the chart. Lows tonight, 35 to 40 over the southeast coast. In the 20s for the Copper River Basin, upper 20s, lower 30s for south central Alaska, and 20 to 25 for the Kuskokwim Valley, and near 30 for Bristol Bay, lower 30s Kodiak Island, up into Seldovia and Homer, and actually all the way up into the Anchorage area. Highs tomorrow, mid-40s, south central Alaska, lower 40s, Kuskokwim Valley and Bristol Bay, as well as the Copper River Basin, Valdez, Kodiak, and mid to upper 40s to near 50 for the southeast coast, followed by lows 35 to 40 for the Panhandle to about Yakutat, as well as the North Gulf Coast and Kodiak. Otherwise, 25 to 30 Copper River Basin in the 20s for the Kuskokwim Valley, 30 to 35 south central Alaska, near 30 for Bristol Bay. Highs 45 to 50 south central Alaska, warmest over the inland areas of the Kenai Peninsula and the Susitna Valley. Otherwise, mid-40s in the Copper River Basin, and a little warmer now over the southern panhandle, looking at highs 50 to 55 there, and up to the north, lows tonight anywhere from 10 to 20 over the central interior, single numbers for the Kobuk, Koyukuk, and upper Yukon valleys, and 5 to 10 below for the Brooks Range and North Slope, as well as the Arctic coast. And the highs tomorrow, 15 to 20 on the northern Seward Peninsula, lower 30s down toward Nome and Golovin, with mid-20s for St. Lawrence Island. In the 40 to 45 degree range from the Fairbanks area eastward to Eagle down to Northway. Otherwise, 30s cooling into the teens for the North Slope and Arctic coast. And for the lows Thursday morning, the only place below zero is the eastern Arctic coast and probably the central North Slope. Otherwise, teens and 20s, followed by highs mid to upper 40s, maybe even 50 over toward Eagle, and cooler out toward the Bering Sea. And out to the southwest, lows tonight 20s and 30s, highs in the 30s to near 40 for Thursday, lows in the 20s to 30s.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather for the North Slope. We've got some IFR on out to the central Arctic coast, but Brooks Range southward there to the mid and lower Yukon River Valley, VFR, and that extends eastward and southward into the northern Kuskokwim Valley and eastward there across Fairbanks on down along and just north of the Alaska Range until you get over toward the eastern interior there, farther toward the border, and then you get into some marginal VFR. Otherwise, areas of IFR with some marginal VFR across southern Alaska now. IFR mostly for the southeast coast and marginal VFR out west. Bering Sea still mostly marginal, but the Aleutians appear to be mostly VFR in the afternoon forecast, especially Unalaska Island and Sand Point, those areas along the Alaska Peninsula. Otherwise, marginal VFR there up into Bristol Bay. And south of the Alaska Range, we've got some marginal VFR with areas of VFR and areas of IFR as well, and that same pattern also looks good for the Panhandle. Good VFR, central interior up to the Brooks Range and the western central North Slope and Arctic coast. Lower conditions there on the east side. Then for Thursday morning, lots of IFR up that way, North Slope and to the eastern Arctic coast through the Brooks Range, extending down right across the Kobuk Valley in towards Selawik, and marginal VFR for Kotzebue though, but marginal VFR, Norton Sound and northern Bering Sea. Actually, most of the Bering Sea looks pretty marginal, as does the Aleutians, and the zone of IFR there along the southwest coast, extending eastward across the Kuskokwim Valley into Kamishak Bay and the western Alaska Range. VFR, Northern Cook Inlet Thursday morning, with IFR, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, all the Panhandle. And then for Thursday afternoon, best conditions still over the central and eastern interior areas with VFR flying there, but to the north, Brooks Range to the eastern Arctic coast, we've got some IFR, a little bit of IFR there, Kuskokwim Bay and inland, and VFR Cook Inlet into the southern southern Susitna Valley. Mananuska Valley looks to be marginal VFR, and the farther east you go, you get some IFR, especially into the Coast Range. And that extends down across much of the Panhandle. VFR, Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula. Passes, Anatuvik and Adigan, both looking good. Another VFR day through those two passes for Wednesday. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR, neither approach tomorrow. Rainy looking pretty marginal and windy. VFR for Windy Pass, and then maybe some marginal VFR at times for Isabel, VFR at other times. And for Mentasta, IFR, call it at times throughout the day Wednesday, or marginal to IFR conditions there with Tanita looking pretty marginal. Portage, marginal VFR, either approach. And for Chilkoot and White, IFR. And for the freezing levels at the surface there across the south central, right across the Bering Sea there, across the Pribilofs, northeastward there to King Salmon, and then north up into the northern Susitna Valley, right across the Copper River Basin, 2,000 feet just edging northward there up into the southern Panhandle, 4,000 feet down over the Queen Charlotte Island. So icing, areas of isolated moderate icing, 6,000 to 12,000 feet, give or take on either side there. Kodiak Island up into the North Gulf Coast, some of that spilling into the Copper River Basin, and then that extending down across Yakutat and the Panhandle to Dixon Entrance. And from there, taking a look at the jet stream. Another cold upper low dropping down from the northeast there to the Arctic coast and North Slope. And otherwise, we've got some low pressure over Bristol Bay and just south of the central Aleutians. So that puts a southwest flow turning westerly at 135 knots into the Panhandle. Northeasterly is about 60 across St. Lawrence Island, 33,000 feet. 9,000 feet, pretty much the same pattern, lighter on the winds though, about 40 to 45 knots or 35 to 45 across the Panhandle out of the west. Pretty light elsewhere, and 3,000 feet, really light winds over interior Alaska and into the Bering Sea as well. A little breezy out over the western Aleutians and a little bit of a breeze over the Panhandle there. So turbulence, really not much to look at here. Maybe some isolated moderate turbulence over the northern southeast coast, as well as northern Kodiak Island up into Kamishak Bay, and maybe along the Alaska Peninsula there, Chignik over towards Sandpoint. That's about it. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
I'm a GOES-R series weather satellite orbiting 22,000 miles above Earth. I can see a lot of cool stuff from up here, and I take pictures of it with my spiffy camera that has 16 different settings. I have such good eyesight, I can see clouds, snow, smoke, smog, and ash, so I can warn you about dangerous conditions and help you avoid them. When storms are brewing, I watch them closely and help with hurricane, tornado, and flood warnings to help keep you safe. And my lightning mapper tracks lightning strikes way up in the sky, even through dark, dense clouds. I also help with search and rescue missions. I listen for distress signals from emergency beacons and tell search and rescue teams just where to find people who need help. But even when I'm keeping a close eye on Earth, I'm monitoring weather out here in space, too. I watch the sun for big bursts of energy, which send waves of radiation toward Earth that can affect power grids, block communication with planes, cause errors in GPS, and damage satellites. Space weather is also very dangerous for astronauts working outside the International Space Station. I warn them so they can get inside where they'll be safe. So the next time you watch a weather report or check your phone for the forecast, remember, that's me. So look to the sky and wave. I'll be here. Things are looking pretty bad down there. But don't worry. I'm going to give weather forecasters a heads up and help you stay safe. I'm a GOES-R series weather satellite, and one of my jobs is to keep an eye on Earth's weather as I orbit above. But I'm 22,000 miles above Earth. How does your local weather forecaster know what I see all the way up here? First, I have to figure out what's going on. I point my special camera at the Earth and take pictures of the clouds I see below. My pictures show where the clouds are, but I also take lots of other notes about the clouds. For example, how high they reach into the atmosphere, how much rain they might cause, and when a severe storm may be forming. But I can't keep all of this information to myself. I have to share it with weather forecasters down on Earth. A big antenna is waiting for my call. Since I'm a satellite, I send my pictures and notes in a computer language of ones and zeros. Luckily, the antenna speaks my language. Computers connected to the antenna organize my notes and combine all of the pictures and cloud information and translate them into weather maps. They send a version of the maps back up to me. I'll hold on to these for later. Another copy of the maps is split into smaller pieces. This helps the maps move faster from one place to another. The map pieces are then sent for processing before being sent back up in the sky to a communication satellite. From there, the maps are picked up by antennas at the National Weather Service forecast offices in each region. There are more than 100 offices. I also take the maps that I received and send them out to companies that specialize in making the maps more colorful and better for viewing on TVs and computers. The colorful maps and the maps from the forecast offices then go to your local weather forecaster. The forecaster combines the information from these maps with lots of other information, like model forecast data and radar data, to make predictions about the upcoming weather in your area. And that's how I help you find out if bad weather is going to ruin your afternoon plans. You're welcome. soon it will be my time to shine in outer space. I'm the GOES-R satellite. That stands for Geostationary Operational Environmental Satellite. And the R stands for my order in this series of weather satellites. Like my older siblings before me, I'll do a lot for watching weather, but I'm pretty special because I have a lot of new gadgets. I'm originally from Colorado, but my journey to space has a few stops along the way. I'll be shipped in a very special satellite shipping container to Kennedy Space Center. Moving me around is not easy. I'm over 18 feet wide and weigh 6,000 pounds. And then things get really exciting. I get loaded onto an Atlas V541 launch vehicle. A big rocket! Woo! After Atlas and I blast off together, my compartment separates from the launch vehicle and I continue to climb higher and higher. Then I break away completely and unfurl my solar panel and antenna. After that, I have to use my thrusters to get into just the right position, 22,000 miles above the ground and traveling 1.9 miles per second to keep up with Earth's rotation. And then I can officially start my job along with my fellow GOES sisters, where I take advanced pictures for more accurate weather forecasts, map lightning in real time, and improve the monitoring of the sun's activity. It's going to be so awesome! I can't wait!
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
And on to the coastal water forecast. We've got gale warnings for tomorrow, for Wednesday, for the south coast of the Panhandle. Winds southwest 35 knots, and lighter winds up to the north there, 10 to 20 knots from the west and southwest. Lynn Canal, south winds 20 knots, seas 4 feet. Stevens Passage, south winds 30 knots, 6-foot seas. And Clarence Strait, south winds 25 knots with 8-foot seas. And then for the day on Thursday, south winds along the central and south coast at 25 to 30 knots with 8 to 12-foot seas. On the north coast, south to southeast winds 30 knots with 14-foot seas. Lighter winds over the inner waters, inside waters. Lynn Canal down to 15 knots from the south. Southeast winds 15 knots for both Stevens Passage and Clarence Strait. Seas at around 3 feet. Prince William Sound, variable winds on Wednesday at 10 knots with slight seas. North Gulf Coast, light variable winds at 10 knots, 4 to 5-foot seas. Southeast wind 15 knots for the Barren Islands and east at 15 for Kamishak Bay. Northeast 15 for Cook Inlet with 4-foot seas. And then on Thursday, big increase in the winds for Prince William Sound, east 30 knots, seas up to 6 feet. Small craft advisories for the North Gulf Coast, southeast winds 25 to 30 knots with 8 to 10-foot seas. Southwest at 20 for the Barren Islands, south at 20 for Kamishak Bay, and Cook Inlet west-southwest 15 knots with seas running 3 to 4 feet. Kodiak Island, south to southwesterlies at 15 knots with 4 to 5-foot seas. Light variable winds for the Alaska Peninsula, seas running 3 to 5 feet, and light southwest breeze for Bristol Bay at 10 knots with 3-foot seas. And moving on to the outlook for Thursday for Kodiak Island, southwest winds 15 to 25 knots. And the Alaska Peninsula, southwest at 15 to 20 with 4 to 5-foot seas. Bristol Bay, southwest 15 and seas 2 feet. For the eastern Aleutians, on Wednesday, northwest winds 15 knots, seas 4 to 6 feet. Northwest winds 20 knots with 5 to 6-foot seas. And for the western Aleutians, north to northwest winds at 20 knots with seas running 7 to 8 feet. And for Thursday, for the eastern Aleutians, west winds 15 to 20 knots. Central Aleutians, westerlies at 20. And for the western Aleutians, east and northeast winds 25 to 30 knots with 7-foot seas. And for Wednesday on the southwest coast, northeast 15 knots, variable at 10 knots for the Pribilofs, north 25 for St. Matthew Island, Norton Sound and St. Lawrence Island, northeast at 15. For Thursday, St. Lawrence Island, Yukon Delta Coast, northerlies at 20 knots, north 30 for St. Matthew Island, northwest 15 for the Pribilofs, and southwest at 15 for Kamishak Bay. And up along the Arctic coast for Wednesday, easterlies 10 to 15 for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, central and western coast, south at 10, and north 15 to 20 knots from Cape Thompson or Cape Beaufort to Wales. And for Thursday, north to northeast winds, 20 to 25 knots from Cape Beaufort to Wales. Western Arctic coast brisk wind advisories there also for northeasterlies at 25 knots, northeast 20 for the central coast, and there on the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, east-northeast 15 knots. High pressure light winds for the North Slope and Arctic coast tonight, and dry over the interior with mostly cloudy skies the farther south you get, especially from the Tanana Valley southward. And it'll be cloudy over southern Alaska, and rain and snow in Prince William Sound, and rain and snow showers for Kodiak Island and Bristol Bay, as well as the Alaska Peninsula and all of the Aleutians. Wind and rain move northward with low pressure just off the moving northward just off the coast of the Panhandle, with gale force winds along the south coast tonight and tomorrow, but those will begin to diminish late in the day, and it'll be showery and breezy across all of the southeast coast. Rain and snow showers are possible anywhere over southern Alaska tomorrow, with mostly cloudy skies even over the interior, showery out over the Aleutians and southern Bering Sea in the form of rain or snow. And not much change for Thursday. Front brings more moisture to the North Gulf Coast and Panhandle, mostly dry over the interior.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.